You don't want me to live with you.
I don't want you to live with me. Whose idea was it?
Diane, louder. Diane, move your head over there. Because it's about goodbye, really. It's about not all love can last.
Diane Keaton was 79 years old when the world said goodbye on October 11th, 2025. A moment so heavy it felt like Hollywood itself went quiet for a beat. But this isn't just a story about losing a legend. Nah, this goes way deeper. What she left behind was wild. Pages and pages of her mom's shaky handwriting mixed with Diane's own raw confessions. And once you step into those diaries, nothing hits the same again. Diane wasn't just Annie Hall or that stylish queen rocking big hats and bold suits for half a century. She carried real-life battles behind the spotlight.
Say, what you're doing is not real. What are you doing? And then I would have to do, well, what do you mean, what am I doing? What am I doing? I'm trying to be good with this partner here, and then wait.
She was a sister watching her brother struggle with mental illness while her name kept rising. She loved 3 major Hollywood icons and lost every single one, all while chasing a feeling she first caught when she was just 9 years old on a tiny stage in Highland Park. Then came Saturday morning, October 11th, 2025 at exactly 8:08 a.m. A call went out to the Los Angeles Fire Department, person down at a Brentwood address. By the time paramedics got there, the truth hit everyone like a thunderbolt. Diane's sudden decline, hidden even from her closest friends, had reached its heartbreaking end. One friend said through tears, she declined very suddenly. It was so unexpected, and those words still echo everywhere people honor her. But here's what most folks don't know. Diane's most shocking truth wasn't about how she passed. It was about what she uncovered long before, inside her mother's secret diaries. 85 journals. 40 years of private thoughts, fears, and secrets, just sitting there. Diane first found them back in the 1970s. She opened one, froze, and slammed it shut like she'd touched fire. She couldn't even look at them again until 2008, after her mother's passing. And when she finally read them, those pages flipped her whole understanding of her family, her mother, and even herself. So here's where the story really begins. Diane Hall, before she became Diane Keaton, was born January 5, 1946 in Los Angeles. Her dad, Jack, was a civil engineer building neighborhoods all across Southern California. Her mom, Dorothy, once sang in a trio called Two Dots and a Dash, bringing charm and dreams to every room. When Diane was 10, the family packed up and moved to Santa Ana. On the outside, they looked like the perfect California picture. Stylish, close, glowing like a postcard. But behind that smooth image, Dorothy carried a heartbreak she never fully healed from. When Dorothy was just 16, her father, Roy, drove away from their Pasadena home and never came back. He left Dorothy, her mom, Ba, and 3 sisters to fight through the Great Depression alone. Ba, who had never worked before, ended up taking a job as a janitor just to keep the family standing. Dorothy dropped her own dreams of college to help everyone survive, and something inside her cracked from the weight of it all. She spent decades trying to patch that wound, through photography, through pages of journaling, and through watching her kids succeed in ways she never got the chance to. And when Diane was 9, she saw her mother crowned Mrs. Highland Park on a grand stage inside the old Figueroa Street movie theater. A moment that burned itself into her memory forever. The curtain lifted to reveal an RCA Victor TV, a Philco washer and dryer, Samsonite luggage, a full wardrobe, even fancy bottles of perfume sparkling under the lights.
They were not lasting. They didn't, I wasn't really a person who could really accept that kind of intimacy and grow from it and give to it.
Dorothy stood there glowing like a true star, and little Diane felt this wild mix of pride and jealousy hit her at the same time. She later admitted, "I secretly wished it would have been me on that stage, not her." 6 months later, Dorothy won again, but behind that crown were cracks Diane would spend her whole life trying to understand. Growing up in Los Angeles, Diane knew deep down, like something stamped onto her soul, that she'd spend every day chasing the same spotlight her mom once stood under. But in that bright house, there were shadows nobody talked about. One of them was her younger brother, Randy, who was scared of everything. The dark, plains, the world beyond their street. When they were kids, she pushed him off a dirt hill onto a sycamore log, and he broke his leg, but never snitched. Randy stayed loyal, she wrote later, wishing she'd been a better sister. Their dad wanted him to toughen up, play sports, be the kid people expected. But Randy couldn't fit into that mold. By his early 20s, his mind was spiraling with bipolar disorder and other struggles he never wanted to act on. While Diane was rising in New York, Randy was fighting storms no one saw. One day in Orange County, someone found him sitting under a pepper tree, drinking tequila, in actress Carol Kane's front yard of all places. Their paths had split for good, one sister climbing, one brother sinking into his own shadow. At 19, Diane grabbed her bags and ran straight toward her dream, Manhattan. She trained under the legendary Sanford Meisner, worked coat check shifts, and auditioned for anything she could find. In 1968, she snagged an understudy role in the Broadway musical Hair. But she wasn't like everyone else. When they asked her to take her clothes off on stage, she straight up refused. That bold move made her stand out. But what happened next changed her life. They told her to lose 10 pounds for the lead role, and something inside her cracked. She began eating uncontrollably, huge amounts of food, then forcing herself to throw it up, hiding the struggle for years. Fried chicken, fries loaded with blue cheese and ketchup, cakes, full meals, gone moments later. She carried that secret like a weight only she could feel. She later confessed, "I was a fat person, an obese person who had somehow tricked myself and managed to hide it for 4 years." Diane later called this period the lowest point of her entire life. "Bulimia," she said, "takes a lot of time out of your day." And she wasn't lying. Every hour felt like a battle. Someone close finally told her she seemed mentally off, and that comment pushed her into therapy 5 days a week for over a year. She called it the talking cure, saying, "Once you talk about it, you own it." But the truth still lived inside her. "I'm an addict in recovery. I'll always be an addict," she admitted, owning that her nature pulled her toward extremes. Everything shifted in 1969 when Woody Allen saw her audition for Play It Again, Sam. He once said, "If Huckleberry Finn were a beautiful young woman, he'd be Keaton." They were both shy, both awkward, and before long, they slipped into something that felt like their own version of love. She moved into his Manhattan apartment, and suddenly he was writing roles with her voice, her quirks, her spirit built right into them. Then, in 1972, Francis Ford Coppola cast her as Kay Adams in The Godfather, standing opposite Al Pacino. During the screen test, Coppola casually asked, "What do you think of Al?" She smiled and said, "I think he's great." And just like that, a spark lit that neither of them could put out. Their connection didn't turn romantic until later, but by then the chemistry was obvious to everyone on set. By the mid-70s, Diane was unstoppable. Sleeper, Love, and Death, Looking for Mr. Goodbar, hit after hit, each one raising her higher. Then, 1977 arrived with Annie Hall, the role Woody wrote just for her, using her real last name and her nickname Annie. The movie exploded, and Diane walked away with an Oscar for Best Actress. Her baggy menswear, her quirky way of talking, her whole vibe turned into a national obsession overnight. She wasn't just acting, she was shaping fashion and culture itself. Woody Allen even admitted he made films for an audience of one. Diane Keaton, he didn't care about critics, just her reaction. But while she was shining worldwide, something darker was unfolding back home in Santa Ana. Her mother Dorothy spent night after night at a desk, pouring her heart into journals no one was supposed to read. Meanwhile, her brother Randy was slipping deeper into isolation and addiction, fighting battles Diane couldn't see from movie sets and red carpets. She later confessed, "My life was so focused on performing, I kind of abandoned them, and the guilt stayed heavy." One day in the mid-70s, Diane was in her mother's dark room developing photos when she found something that froze her in place, a journal she'd never seen. The cover read, "It's the journey that counts, not the arrival." Inside were raw, unfiltered confessions about Dorothy's 31-year marriage to Jack Hall, words no daughter expects to discover. One entry from August 2nd, 1976 came with a bold warning, "Watch out on this page." Dorothy wrote about a vicious argument where she called Jack a frigging bastard.
Simply terrific. Naturally, I'm very honored to have been nominated. Anyway, Annie Hall was a wonderful experience for me, and I just would like to say thanks to Woody and thank you. Thank you very much.
Ending with, "God, who the hell does he think he is?" Diane said the honesty felt like a punch to the chest. Too real, too sharp. She set the journal down quietly, walked out of the dark room, and didn't touch any of her mother's 85 journals again, not until Dorothy passed in 2008, 3 decades later. That's when the truth finally caught up with her, and it hit harder than she ever imagined. She loved 3 of Hollywood's biggest legends and lost every single one of them. Woody Allen was the first. They lived together in New York, made 8 films side by side, and created straight-up movie magic. But something only God and Freud might understand, as Woody later wrote, kept their love from lasting. They broke up in the mid-70s, yet stayed friends and collaborators for almost 60 years. When Diane passed in 2025, Woody wrote, "A few days ago, the world was a place that included Diane Keaton. Now it's a world that does not, hence it's a drearier world." His words hit people hard. Then came Warren Beatty, the Hollywood heartthrob of heartthrobs. Diane had admired him ever since she saw Splendor in the Grass back in 1961. Years later, filming Reds in 1981, he was both her co-star and her director, and their chemistry lit the whole set on fire. Their relationship lasted around 5 years, but the shoot nearly broke her. Beatty was known for being intense, relentless, non-stop. One assistant director even said Diane almost got broken. Their romance barely survived the chaos of the film, but even after it ended, they stayed cool with each other. In 2016, Beatty described her as brilliant, beautiful, passionate, a mix of integrity, humor, and intelligence, a tribute that showed how deeply she'd marked him. But the man who captured her heart the most, Al Pacino. They met during The Godfather, but sparks didn't fly until Part 2 in 1974, and once they lit up, they stayed glowing on and off for nearly 20 years. Diane was mad for him. She called him charming, hilarious, a non-stop talker, and said he had something about him like a lost orphan, this crazy genius savant, and oh, gorgeous. Around 1990, she gave him an ultimatum, marriage or nothing. He picked nothing. Diane later admitted, "I worked hard on that one. I didn't go about it in a perfect way." After the breakup, they stopped speaking, even though they lived just blocks apart in Beverly Hills. When people asked why, Al reportedly told a friend, "There's no need to talk with each other. We said everything that needed to be said." But when Diane passed, someone close to Pacino revealed he now regrets never marrying her, a truth that hit him way too late. People around him had whispered it for years. He'd always regret not making that move. He used to tell friends, "If it's meant to be, it's never too late for a do-over." But now, it finally was too late. Years later, Diane opened up about why marriage never happened for her. "I had this insane idea that I had to be in love," she said. "Now I understand what it really takes, being a good team together, real consideration." But then she dropped a shocker. "By the way, no one has ever asked me to marry them either." That confession hit people like a tidal wave. This glamorous, brilliant, iconic woman had never even been proposed to. When her mother Dorothy passed on September 18, 2008, after a brutal 15-year fight with Alzheimer's, Diane finally did what she'd avoided for decades. She opened all 85 journals, and what she found inside shattered every illusion she'd carried. The perfect marriage, the shiny California dream, the golden family portrait, it was all a myth. Dorothy's own words told a completely different story. Dorothy wrote about Jack's explosive temper, the arguments that left her with red marks on her face and bruises on her arms and legs. She confessed to deep loneliness, depression, and even moments where life felt too heavy to carry. Once the kids moved out, something in her spirit seemed to collapse. She turned to drinking, drowning in regret and dreams she'd never chased. She had once wanted to be a writer and a photographer, but those dreams got buried under motherhood, and the resentment leaked through every page. Even as Alzheimer's began stealing her memories, Dorothy never stopped writing. In June 1993, with shaking hands, she wrote, "This is the day I heard I have the beginning of Alzheimer's disease. Scary." When she couldn't write full thoughts anymore, she wrote single sentences. Would we hurt each other less if we touched each other more? And when sentences became too hard, she wrote single words. Rent, call, flowers, car, and her favorite, think. Eventually, even words slipped away, and she wrote numbers. She refused to fade quietly. Dorothy once wrote something that stayed with Diane forever. Every living person should be forced to write an autobiography, unravel everything that's been packed into their lives. She believed honesty could finally make a person understandable to themselves and others. Diane later responded, "I wish she had written her autobiography. And because she didn't, I've written not my memoir, but ours." Meanwhile, her brother Randy's life had taken a heartbreaking turn. By 2020, at age 71, he was living in an assisted facility, struggling with dementia. Diane visited him every Sunday, Like going to church, she said. They'd walk the grounds, grab frozen yogurt, and she'd push his wheelchair under the California sun. His old violent fantasies were gone, replaced by silence and confusion. Diane admitted she didn't always know if he recognized her anymore. At 71 years of age, she wrote, Randy is in the process of dying. The truth she uncovered in those journals was brutal. Behind the smiling family photos were abuse, alcoholism, and crushed dreams. Behind the confident star the world adored was a woman battling bulimia, insecurity, and heartbreak from 3 great loves who couldn't commit. Behind her fame lived guilt. Guilt for the family she felt she left behind. The woman everyone thought was bold, eccentric, unstoppable. She had spent her whole life feeling like she just wasn't enough. Then at 50, something shifted inside her. Diane adopted her first child, a daughter named Dexter, born December 15, 1995. 5 years later, at 55, she adopted her son, Duke, born February 8, 2000. Becoming a single mother flipped her entire world upside down, in the best way. I didn't think I was ever going to be prepared to be a mother, she admitted, but it wasn't an urge I could resist. It was a thought I'd been thinking for a very long time, so I plunged in. She called motherhood the most humbling experience of her life, a role that stripped away the image, stripped away the fame, and left only the real stuff, truth and love. Diane once said, "If I worried, it was only about myself, and becoming a mother forced her to grow beyond that." But that's what parenting is. Rule number 1, worry in secret while pretending everything's fine. And Diane lived exactly like that, always caring, always protecting, never letting her kids see the fear underneath. In 2014, her daughter, Dexter, posted a Mother's Day message that melted hearts everywhere. "I'm so thankful to have been adopted by such a strong, beautiful, and talented woman. I couldn't thank you enough. I love you." Diane treasured moments like that. Then in June 2021, Dexter married racer Jordan White. Diane showed up glowing in her signature white pantsuit and wide-brimmed hat, dancing with her daughter under the lights like she'd stepped into a dream. But Diane's life wasn't just acting or motherhood. She found a whole new kind of redemption in real estate. Her second career flipping historic homes around Los Angeles became legendary. She restored masterpieces by Lloyd Wright and Wallace Neff, sometimes earning more from houses than from Hollywood itself. Her Brentwood estate, built from 75,000 hand-picked clay bricks, was her ultimate creation. She always said she remembered the 3 little pigs as a kid, and even at 5, she knew she'd someday live in a brick house, something solid, something that wouldn't blow away. Through her memoirs, Then Again, 2011, Brother and Sister, 2020, and years of reflection, Diane worked to make sense of everything. She found forgiveness for her mother, compassion for Randy, and peace with herself. She finally stopped running from her story and started owning it. But in her final months, something changed. Diane began quietly pulling away from the world she once lit up. She stopped her daily dog walks, and that vibrant spark she carried everywhere she went started to dim. Friends said she had lost a noticeable amount of weight. One recalled seeing her weeks before she passed. She was very thin. She had lost so much weight. In March 2025, Diane quietly listed her beloved Brentwood home for nearly $29 million, a shock to those who knew how much of her soul she poured into it. Sources say that in those last months, she stayed surrounded only by her closest family. Everything was kept incredibly private. Even longtime friends didn't fully know what was happening. Then came that quiet Saturday morning, October 11th, 2025. Diane Keaton, age 79, passed away. The cause of death still hasn't been officially released. She left behind an estate worth around $100 million, 2 children who adored her, and a legacy that changed 5 decades of film history. But here's the truth, the one hidden in her mother's diaries, in her own memoirs, and in the life she fought to understand. Diane Keaton spent her entire life chasing something she first felt at 9 years old. That moment her mother stood on that stage, crown shining under the lights, changed Diane forever. What she wanted wasn't fame or cash, it was something way deeper. She wanted to be seen, to be chosen, to feel like she was finally enough. She won an Oscar, dated legends, built an empire, and still, somewhere inside, she was that same 9-year-old girl watching from the crowd, wishing it had been her under the spotlight. Her mother, Dorothy, wrote one word again and again in her journals: think. Maybe that's the real message Diane leaves behind. Think about who you are when nobody's watching. Think about the secrets you keep and the truths you hide. Think about whether the approval you're chasing will ever actually fill the emptiness you don't talk about. And most of all, think about the people you love while you still have time. After her passing, Woody Allen wrote, "Unlike anyone the planet has ever experienced or is likely to see again, her face and her laugh illuminated any space she entered. Now it's a drearier world." His words hit the world like a punch to the chest. Diane Keaton is survived by her daughter Dexter, her son Duke, her sisters Dory and Robin, and her brother Randy. But what truly survives her, more than fame, films, awards, or fortune, is the truth she finally dared to tell. The truth that even icons are human. Even legends have fears. Even the woman in the oversized hat and sharp men's suit, the star of Annie Hall and The Godfather, spent her whole life quietly wondering if she was enough. And here's the twist. She always was. She just never believed it. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if you felt something real, and don't forget to subscribe to RumorFame for more stories. See you on the next one.